One of Elvis Presley's oldest and dearest friends, and one of our friends at Live at 9 as well. George Klein was part of the King's Inner Circle for nearly 30 years.
And now GK is reliving his radio days at rock and roll nights and his lifelong friendship with Elvis in a brand new book. Elvis, My Best Man, has gotten rave reviews from folks like Jerry Lee Lewis, Dick Clark, Tom Petty, and check this out, even Priscilla Presley herself. George Klein, the Jeeker, GK, is here in the house.
All right.
Good to see you,
GK,
man.
what's going
All
on,
right,
man?
you got it, Alex.
It took 2 years. Anybody,
years.
GK, who knows you, they know you are very meticulous when it comes to making sure things are authentic. Why did it take so long to write this? Why did you want to make sure you got these stories right?
Well, actually, because I'm supposed to be an authority on Elvis. And if I make a mistake, I'm going to look really bad. So we did a lot of research in addition to all my stories. But went back and looked at my stories and made sure they were correct in the dates. I'm bad on dates and years and things like that. But as far as stories, I got pretty good recall because I'd done that Elvis radio show, the Elvis Hour, for 30 years. And I tell all those stories on the Elvis Hour, so I can just whip them right off the top of my head. But as far as being factual, I got to look up the dates sometimes.
You say he was smarter and funnier than people give him credit for. And I think sometimes our tendency, and maybe it's because Elvis died so young, is to kind of make him a caricature. But you try to really flesh out that caricature. What regrets do you have about the way we see Elvis from somebody who knew him so well
that's
that
a
we
good
don't
question.
know?
The regrets are, Mary Beth, are that you didn't get to spend any quality time with him. If you got to spend time with a guy, even an hour or 30 minutes, you'd say, wow, he's sharper, he's funny, he's intelligent, more so than I ever thought, because he was. He read a lot. When you travel and you go to the president's house like he did, and you rub elbows with governors and senators and directors in Hollywood and other great actors who are really quality people, a lot of that rubs off on you, and it rubbed off on Elvis.
He was a deep thinker, too, wasn't
he?
he?
Very deep thinker. He was just a quality person.
Let's talk about, GK, some of the stories. And you reveal in this book some stories many of us, even lifelong Memphians, and folks who've been here dozens of years like Mary Beth and I have been, some stories we had never heard before. What were some of the standouts, some of the nuggets that I think a lot of folks might find interesting?
Well, number one, how tight he was with his mother. That's first and foremost. Had his mother lived, Alex, Elvis Presley would have been alive today.
You think?
Oh,
really?
yes. There was no doubt in my mind.
Why do you say that, George?
Because he loved her so dearly that when they talked, there was no confrontations, there was no arguments, there was no discussions. If she said, Elvis, I wish you wouldn't do that. She said, Elvis, I wish you wouldn't fly. He wouldn't fly. She said, Elvis, I wish you wouldn't run around with those people. He wouldn't run around with them. She'd say, Elvis, I wish you wouldn't date Natalie Wood, for example. And he said, so he quit dating Natalie Wood.
And is that a true story? That is because I've always heard that.
Yeah, I don't want to get off into the Natalie Wood thing because we're on live television. But
but she didn't like
her hygiene wasn't the greatest. I'll put it that way.
Right.
Maybe taking a bath, I'll put it lightly.
Okay.
But that's not it, but I don't want to get off into all that.
Right.
But my point is, he loved his mother dearly. He believed in her. She had a great judge of character in her. And she just had a nice control over
So if she had seen him becoming addicted to medicine and pills,
that would have stopped immediately.
Wow.
That never would have happened if she had been around. The second person was Priscilla.
Okay.
Now, Priscilla had an extreme close relationship with Elvis even after they divorced. And but Priscilla was doing her own thing in Hollywood, and Elvis and Priscilla were divorced 4 years before Elvis passed away.
Right.
GK, when you approached this book, though, what was kind of going on in your mind? Was it, I want to put it all out here, or put it as much out here as possible? Were you concerned a little bit maybe about offending some other so-called close friends of Elvis? Or how did you kind of look into that?
Yeah,
was it a delicate situation to kind of talk to us about that?
That was very delicate, Alex, because I'm so still close to those people in Memphis. Yet I wanted to lay everything out there. I didn't want to whitewash anything.
Right.
But I wanted to do it in a nice, soft way. I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. There's a couple of stories in the book I was concerned about. We wrote them and rewrote them where they came out nice as opposed to being real harsh. Because you know my nature, Mary Beth and Alex. You know, I'm a pretty good, nice guy, and I don't want to rip anybody.
Well, and you love Elvis.
Yeah, exactly. So we discuss the people around Elvis. Some were good and some were bad for him. We discuss his lifestyle in the later years. Some was good and some was bad. But we don't rip anybody.
Right.
And we touch on them real lightly, so to speak. A lot of people come up to me and said, yeah, I've read your book, and I like the way you handle such and such situation with Elvis and the medication,
right.
which when I used to speak on Elvis, when I was traveling after he passed away, going all the countries, I'd say, yeah, Elvis had a chemical dependency on prescribed medication. The good doctor was in Memphis. The bad doctor was in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
The bad doctor was in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
There was a showbiz doctor in Vegas who was bad, who passed away. There was a bad dentist in Los Angeles who's still alive.
Wow. You write in the book, too, and this I've never heard anywhere. This may be the only place it's there, that he and Priscilla actually came up with the lightning bolt logo. Tell that story.
Well, it's a long story, but I'll brief it down. I'm traveling with Elvis. We're on tour. And with Elvis is an undercover guy from the Los Angeles Police Department. He starts telling me these stories. He looks like he's about 18, but really he was 22.
Okay.
And I said, why are you traveling with us? He said, well, I had to get out of town because I went undercover in Los Angeles, and I busted a drug ring at Hollywood High School. And I said, well, there had to be some great examples of what happened. He said, oh, yeah. He said, I was dating this girl. He said, I was supposed to be a high school senior. She was a high school senior. I looked down around her neck. She had a thunderbolt. He said, I immediately knew the thunderbolt was a sign of the West Coast Mafia. I said, what? He said, yeah. I said, yeah. He said, what's your name, honey? She said, Jean Martin. He said, no, what's your real name? And she came up with an Italian-sounding name who was the head of the West Coast Mafia. I said, wait a minute, tell Elvis this story. And I stopped. We're on the Lisa Marie plane. We're on the airplane flying somewhere. So he moves on. Elvis, he said, what? He said, yeah, Elvis, the sign of the West Coast Mafia is a thunderbolt. Well, Elvis's guys was called the Memphis Mafia.
Right.
Elvis took that. The thunderbolt actually meant in a flash. I mean, he wanted things done quickly.
Right.
He didn't want it yesterday. He wanted it today. And the catchphrase TCB was a catchphrase going around, at that time. So he turned it over to Priscilla and your friends, Jerry Schilling, and they got together, all of them, and they designed the TCB Thunderbolt, which became Elvis's logo.
Wow. Very cool. You get stuff in this book you don't get anywhere
I know.
else.
It is a great book. Elvis, My Best Man. You got to check it out.
Absolutely.
It's mandatory. Good
and
reading.
You got to come out and meet GK, as Elvis called him, Davis Kid. Tonight,
Yeah,
you're
tonight.
book
Thank you.
signing,
I was just going to say,
6
Mary,
o'clock.
I'll be at Davis Kid book signing, 6 o'clock tonight.
They
All
better
right.
put an addition on that building because
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
there's going to be
Appreciate
a lot
you.
of
I
people
want to
out
ask you
there.
guys, how do you get all this live talent every day? I have trouble once a month on my show, and you guys do it every day, man.
We use your name.
That's it. That's
we
the
say
only way
we're
we
friends
follow
with
up.
George
How you do
Klein.
it.
All right, Dave. Thanks a lot, man.
Okay.
A short